How does a city built on a swamp become one of the largest cities on Earth? How does a wandering people with no homeland become masters of millions? And how can an empire that seemed almost unstoppable disappear in less than 3 years? The story of the Aztec Empire is far more than one of conquest, gold, or dramatic battles. It is the story of extraordinary determination, remarkable engineering, brilliant political strategy, and a civilization that still shapes Mexico centuries after its fall. Yet hidden beneath every triumph was a dangerous truth. The very forces that built the empire would eventually help bring it down. Long before Europeans sailed across the Atlantic, central Mexico was already home to one of the world's most sophisticated regions. Powerful civilizations had risen, flourished, and disappeared for more than 1,000 years. The magnificent city of Teotihuacan had once dominated the valley, with perhaps more than 100,000 inhabitants before mysteriously declining centuries earlier. Later came the Toltecs, whose military reputation and artistic achievements became so legendary that later rulers claimed them as ancestors to strengthen their own legitimacy. Into this world arrived a people who called themselves the Mexica. According to their traditions, they had journeyed for generations from a distant homeland known as Aztlan. Although historians continue to debate where, or even whether, such a place truly existed. Wherever their journey began, one reality remained clear: they were outsiders. They possessed no magnificent cities, no wealthy kingdoms, and few powerful allies. Often unwelcome, they survived by adapting, serving stronger neighbors, and refusing to abandon the belief that something greater awaited them. Their patron deity, Huitzilopochtli, promised they would know their true home when they witnessed an eagle standing upon a prickly pear cactus, devouring a serpent. Whether the vision reflected literal history or powerful symbolism mattered less than the determination it inspired. It gave an entire people confidence that their hardships were preparing them for a greater destiny. Around 1325, that destiny appeared in the middle of Lake Texcoco. Most people would have seen only mud, reeds, mosquitoes, and shallow water. Building a city there seemed almost impossible. The Mexica saw opportunity. Instead of fleeing the wetlands, they transformed them. Engineers created remarkably fertile agricultural islands known as chinampas by layering mud, reeds, and vegetation into carefully constructed fields. These floating gardens produced multiple harvests each year and eventually became among the most productive farming systems anywhere in the ancient world. Canals replaced streets, canoes became everyday transportation. Massive causeways connected the island to the mainland, while carefully engineered dikes helped control flooding and separate fresh water from saltier sections of the lake. What appeared to be the city's greatest weakness was becoming its greatest advantage. The settlement they founded became Tenochtitlan. At first, it remained little more than an ambitious frontier town overshadowed by stronger neighbors. Few could have imagined that this isolated island would one day rival the greatest cities on Earth. Fewer still realized that the surrounding lake, which protected the city for generations, would eventually become one of the very paths through which its enemies would return. The foundations of an empire had been laid. For decades, survival demanded patience more than power. The early Mexica served stronger rulers as soldiers, paid tribute to neighboring kingdoms, and carefully observed the constantly shifting politics of central Mexico. Every campaign became a lesson. Every alliance revealed new opportunities. They understood that kingdoms were rarely conquered by force alone. They were won through diplomacy, timing, and knowing exactly when to strike. While their rivals focused on controlling territory, the Mexica focused on building a capital unlike anything Mesoamerica had ever seen. Generation after generation, Tenochtitlan expanded across Lake Texcoco. New causeways reached the mainland. Sophisticated aqueducts carried fresh spring water into the city. Markets multiplied. Temples climbed higher into the sky. Neighborhoods spread across carefully planned districts linked by canals alive, with thousands of canoes carrying people and goods throughout the day. By the 15th century, Tenochtitlan had grown into one of the largest cities on Earth. Its population may have exceeded 200,000 people, a size rivaling or surpassing many of Europe's greatest capitals, while cities such as London and Paris were still far smaller and struggled with sanitation. Visitors arriving in Tenochtitlan encountered broad, clean streets, organized marketplaces, public sanitation systems, flowing fresh water, and canals bustling with commercial traffic. Many Spanish observers later admitted they had never seen anything quite like it. At the enormous marketplace of Tlatelolco, tens of thousands gathered daily. Merchants traded cacao, cotton, obsidian, pottery, rubber, colorful feathers, jade, copper, food, and countless luxury goods arriving from across Mesoamerica. Judges supervised transactions, standardized measurements promoted fairness, and long-distance merchants carried intelligence as well as merchandise between distant regions. The marketplace functioned not only as the empire's commercial heart, but also as one of its greatest sources of information. Everything changed in 1428. The Mexica formed an alliance with Texcoco and Tlacaelel, creating what became known as the Triple Alliance. Together, they defeated the powerful Tepanec ruler Moctezuma, ending decades of regional dominance and completely reshaping the political balance of central Mexico. Behind this transformation stood remarkable leaders. The Emperor Itzcoatl helped unite the alliance. But one of history's most influential statesmen never wore the imperial crown. Tlacaelel reshaped the identity of an entire civilization. He redefined history, elevated Mexica traditions, strengthened religious institutions, and transformed military success into both political necessity and sacred responsibility. Few individuals have altered the destiny of an empire so profoundly without ever becoming its ruler. Success accelerated with astonishing speed. Each campaign brought new provinces, greater wealth, and increased prestige. Yet instead of replacing every local government, the empire usually allowed conquered rulers to remain in power as long as tribute continued flowing to Tenochtitlan. It was an efficient system that enabled rapid expansion while requiring relatively few administrators. It was also quietly creating future enemies. Under rulers including Moctezuma I, Itzcoatl, Tizoc, and especially Ahuitzotl, imperial frontiers stretched from the Gulf Coast to the Pacific Ocean. Perhaps 5 to 6 million people ultimately lived within territories controlled or dominated by the empire. Cotton, cacao, turquoise, rubber, obsidian, tropical feathers, gold, and countless other treasures poured into the capital, funding magnificent temples, ambitious construction projects, and increasingly powerful armies. To the outside world, the Aztecs appeared unstoppable, yet every victory demanded new tribute. Every conquest created another defeated rival. Every expansion made the empire richer, but also harder to hold together. The same engine driving the Aztec Empire toward greatness was quietly laying the foundations for one of history's most dramatic collapses. By the dawn of the 16th century, the Aztec Empire had become the dominant power in central Mexico. Its influence stretched from the Gulf Coast across rugged mountains to the Pacific Ocean, while hundreds of cities and towns acknowledged the authority of Tenochtitlan. Tribute arrived daily from distant provinces, filling warehouses with food, cotton, cacao, precious feathers, obsidian, jade, gold, and countless other goods. To many throughout Mesoamerica, Aztec power seemed as permanent as the mountains themselves. At the center of this empire stood one of the most astonishing cities the world had ever seen. Approaching Tenochtitlan across the great causeways, travelers watched a vast metropolis rise from the waters of Lake Texcoco like a mirage. Whitewashed temples gleamed beneath the sun. Broad ceremonial avenues stretched between magnificent palaces, Hundreds of canals carried an endless stream of canoes transporting merchants, farmers, nobles, and craftsmen throughout the city. Spanish visitors later compared the site to the great cities of Europe, yet many admitted they had never witnessed anything quite so breathtaking. The city was not merely beautiful, it was brilliantly organized. Fresh water flowed into the capital through carefully engineered aqueducts. Streets and canals formed an orderly grid. Public sanitation kept much of the city remarkably clean, while organized crews regularly removed waste. At a time when many European cities struggled with overcrowding and poor sanitation, Tenochtitlan demonstrated an extraordinary level of urban planning that surprised even its future conquerors. Its commercial heartbeat within the enormous marketplace of Tlatelolco. Every day, perhaps tens of thousands of people gathered beneath colorful awnings to trade goods from every corner of Mesoamerica. Canoes arrived before sunrise, loaded with maize, beans, squash, flowers, fish, and fresh produce harvested from the surrounding chinampas. Merchants displayed brilliantly colored quetzal feathers, jaguar pelts, finely woven cotton, obsidian blades sharper than steel, copper tools, cacao beans used as currency, and luxury goods from lands hundreds of miles away. Judges supervised transactions, standardized measurements promoted fairness, and disputes were settled according to established laws. Commerce became one of the empire's greatest instruments of stability. None of this prosperity would have existed without remarkable agricultural innovation. The chinampas surrounding Tenochtitlan transformed shallow wetlands into one of the most productive farming systems in history. Carefully layered soil remained fertile year after year, allowing multiple harvests that fed hundreds of thousands of people. These floating gardens represented more than engineering. They demonstrated an ability to reshape nature itself in service of an expanding civilization. Military excellence remained equally essential. For Aztec warriors, success in battle brought not only honor, but opportunity. Courage could elevate ordinary young men into the ranks of the elite. Eagle and jaguar warriors became legendary throughout Mesoamerica, recognized by their elaborate armor, discipline, and battlefield skill. Military achievement shaped politics, religion, and social status alike, reinforcing an empire whose continued prosperity depended upon maintaining its reputation for overwhelming strength. Religion united every aspect of Aztec life. Towering above the capital stood the magnificent Templo Mayor, where rulers, priests, and citizens gathered during ceremonies believed essential to preserving the balance of the universe. Festivals filled the calendar with music, dance, offerings, and rituals that brought together people from across the empire. To the Aztecs, political authority, military victory, and religious responsibility could not be separated. Maintaining cosmic order required every part of society to fulfill its role. Yet the empire was far more than armies and temples. Its scholars preserved knowledge through beautifully painted codices recording history, tribute, genealogy, astronomy, and religious traditions. Skilled artisans created breathtaking feather mosaics, intricate goldwork, finely carved stone sculptures, and ceramics admired across Mesoamerica. Poets and philosophers debated questions of leadership, mortality, beauty, and humanity's place within an uncertain world. Universal education ensured that even many commoners received formal instruction, creating one of the most intellectually vibrant civilizations in the Americas. When Moctezuma II became emperor in 1502, the empire appeared to stand at the very height of its greatness. Diplomats arrived from distant provinces. Merchants filled the marketplaces. Tribute flowed without interruption. The capital dazzled nearly everyone who entered it. But beneath the brilliance, the empire's greatest strength was quietly becoming its greatest vulnerability. Its prosperity depended upon continuous tribute. Its authority depended upon fear as much as loyalty. Its stability depended upon an ever-growing network of conquered peoples remaining obedient. The higher the empire climbed, the more fragile its foundations quietly became. History rarely announces the beginning of an empire's decline. Instead, the warning signs often appear while everything still seems successful. The Aztec Empire was no exception. Beyond the magnificent temples of Tenochtitlan, resentment had been growing for generations. Many conquered city-states honored their tribute obligations not because they respected Aztec authority, but because resistance seemed hopeless. Every shipment of cotton, cacao, food, labor, and luxury goods enriched the capital while reminding distant communities that their prosperity now served someone else's empire. The system remained remarkably efficient. It was never universally loved. Military expansion also began reaching its practical limits. Some neighboring powers refused to submit, despite repeated campaigns. Chief among them stood the fiercely independent Republic of Tlaxcala. Surrounded by Aztec territory yet never conquered, Tlaxcala endured decade after decade, its warriors gaining valuable experience through continual conflict. What appeared to be a contained rival would one day become one of the empire's greatest dangers. The empire itself rested upon a delicate political balance. Rather than replacing local governments, the Aztecs usually allowed defeated rulers to remain in power if tribute continued arriving on schedule. This reduced the need for large occupying armies and allowed the empire to expand with remarkable speed. Yet beneath the appearance of unity, genuine loyalty often remained surprisingly thin. Many provinces obeyed because Aztec armies were powerful, not because Aztec rule was welcomed. The empire had mastered conquest. It had not always mastered lasting unity. Then came events that later generations remembered with growing unease. Ancient accounts described mysterious lights in the sky, strange fires, unusual celestial phenomena, and other unsettling omens witnessed before the arrival of the Spanish. Modern historians continue debating whether these stories reflected actual events or were later shaped by memory after the conquest. Whatever their origin, they reveal something deeply human. Even powerful civilizations sometimes sense uncertainty before fully understanding its cause. Far beyond the eastern horizon, history was already changing. Spanish expeditions exploring the Caribbean gradually expanded westward in search of wealth, opportunity, and new lands. Horses, steel weapons, firearms, unfamiliar political ambitions, and diseases unknowingly carried across the Atlantic would soon arrive on the shores of Mexico. Neither civilization fully understood the other. Each interpreted unfamiliar customs through its own beliefs, assumptions, and expectations. Misunderstandings quickly multiplied. Political calculations shifted constantly. Old rivalries suddenly gained new possibilities. Then, in 1519, Hernán Cortés landed on the Gulf Coast. To the Aztecs, he appeared to command only a few hundred foreign soldiers, hardly an invasion force capable of threatening one of history's greatest empires. Yet numbers alone rarely decide history. The Spaniards did not arrive in a united land. They arrived in a region filled with ambitious city-states, old rivalries, and thousands who had spent generations waiting for an opportunity to challenge Aztec dominance. For the first time since the founding of Tenochtitlan nearly 2 centuries earlier, the empire's future no longer depended solely upon its own decisions. The forces gathering beyond its borders, and those already growing within them, were finally about to collide. In the spring of 1519, Hernán Cortés landed on the Gulf Coast with barely 600 Spaniards. Against an empire ruling millions, the expedition seemed insignificant. By itself, it almost certainly was. Yet Cortés quickly recognized something many later generations overlooked. The greatest weakness of the Aztec Empire was not its military strength, nor its magnificent capital, but the growing number of peoples who had come to resent its rule. If he could turn those rivals into allies, the balance of power would change completely. One by one, indigenous states began making difficult choices. Some resisted the newcomers, others fought them. But many saw an opportunity to overthrow the empire that had demanded tribute from them for generations. No alliance proved more decisive than Tlacaelel. After fierce initial battles, the fiercely independent republic chose cooperation over continued war. Thousands of experienced Tlaxcalan warriors joined Cortés, followed by many other indigenous allies from across central Mexico. What had begun as a small European expedition rapidly became a vast coalition composed overwhelmingly of native forces. The coming war would not simply be Spain against the Aztecs. It would become a struggle between rival civilizations, competing indigenous powers, and rapidly shifting alliances unlike anything Mesoamerica had experienced before. When Cortés entered Tenochtitlan in November 1519, even the Spaniards struggled to comprehend what lay before them. Towering temples rose above shimmering canals. Broad avenues crossed the lake. Marketplaces overflowed with merchants from every corner of the empire. Many Europeans later admitted that no description could adequately capture the city's scale or beauty. For a brief moment, diplomacy appeared possible, yet beneath the formal ceremonies, mistrust deepened with every passing day. Each side misunderstood the other's intentions. Each believed it still controlled the situation. Neither truly did. Violence finally erupted within the capital. The fragile relationship collapsed into open conflict, and Emperor Moctezuma II died amid the chaos under circumstances that remain debated by historians. Whether killed by his own people, by the Spanish, or caught between both sides, his death shattered the political stability upon which the empire depended. Leadership passed to new rulers. The struggle intensified. Then came one of the greatest military reversals of the conquest. During the desperate night remembered as La Noche Triste, the Spanish attempted to flee Tenochtitlan under cover of darkness. As they crossed the causeways, Aztec warriors attacked relentlessly from canoes and fortified positions. Hundreds of Spaniards and many of their indigenous allies were killed or drowned beneath the weight of armor and stolen treasure. For a moment, history seemed ready to take a different path. The invaders had been driven out. The capital still stood. The empire had survived its greatest test. But another enemy had already entered the Valley of Mexico, invisible, unstoppable. Smallpox spread rapidly through communities that had never encountered the disease before. Entire families disappeared within weeks. Warriors, priests, artisans, farmers, nobles, and children died in staggering numbers. Experienced commanders vanished. Political leadership fractured. Harvests failed as fields went untended. Fear spread faster than any messenger could carry news. Disease alone did not destroy the Aztec Empire, but it transformed an already dangerous crisis into an overwhelming catastrophe. When Cortés returned in 1521, he no longer commanded merely hundreds of Europeans. He led tens of thousands of indigenous allies. Together they surrounded Tenochtitlan. Brigantines sailed across Lake Texcoco, severing supply routes that had protected the city for nearly 2 centuries. Causeways became battlefields, canals filled with debris. Hunger, thirst, epidemic disease, and relentless fighting slowly exhausted the defenders. Street by street, bridge by bridge, temple by temple, one of the greatest cities on earth was systematically reduced to ruins. On August 13, 1521, the young Emperor Cuauhtémoc was captured while attempting to escape across Lake Texcoco. Organized resistance effectively came to an end. Upon the shattered remains of Tenochtitlan, the Spanish began constructing what would become Mexico City. The Aztec Empire did not fall because of a single battle, a single disease, or a single man. It collapsed through the convergence of many forces, long-standing indigenous rivalries, Spanish military strategy, political miscalculation, devastating epidemic disease, an empire built upon tribute rather than lasting loyalty. The very system that had transformed a small island settlement into one of history's greatest civilizations had also created the conditions that made its collapse possible. An empire nearly 2 centuries in the making disappeared in less than 3 years. Empires can fall. Civilizations often endure. Although Aztec political rule ended in 1521, the people, traditions, and achievements of the Mexica never disappeared. Today, well over 1 million people still speak Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs. Words such as chocolate, tomato, avocado, coyote, and ocelot entered languages around the world through Nahuatl, becoming part of everyday life far beyond Mexico. Ancient chinampa agriculture continues to survive in parts of the Valley of Mexico, offering remarkably sustainable farming methods that still inspire modern environmental researchers. Beneath the streets of modern Mexico City, archaeologists continue uncovering the remarkable world of ancient Tenochtitlan. The towering remains of the Templo Mayor, magnificent stone sculptures, brilliantly crafted jewelry, painted codices, and countless other discoveries reveal a civilization of extraordinary sophistication whose achievements continue to challenge outdated stereotypes. Perhaps the Aztec Empire leaves behind a lesson that extends far beyond its own history. Its engineers transformed a swamp into one of the world's greatest cities. Its farmers fed hundreds of thousands through remarkable innovation. Its merchants connected an entire region through trade. Its artists, architects, poets, and scholars created a civilization whose influence continues to shape Mexico centuries later. Yet its greatest strength also became its greatest weakness. Expansion created prosperity. Prosperity demanded tribute. Tribute created resentment. And resentment gave future enemies the opportunity they had long been waiting for. History reminds us that greatness is rarely destroyed by a single event. It is gradually weakened when success conceals growing vulnerabilities that few are willing or able to see. Today, millions walk the streets of Mexico City without realizing they follow the outlines of ancient Tenochtitlan, where canoes once glided through shining canals, and one of history's greatest civilizations reached the height of its power. The empire is gone. The civilization lives on, and the rise and fall of the Aztec Empire reminds us that history's greatest achievements are measured not only by how high they rise, but by the ideas, innovations, and people that continue to shape the world long after the empire itself has fallen. Because greatness is never permanent, but its legacy can outlive even the mightiest empire.